Paper Tigers. Written by MidnightDancer. And you see, Princess, by allocating the bits currently being spent on such frivolous things as music for the public schools, we can beautify Canterlot and bring in more tourist revenue besides. The overstuffed unicorn stallion drew himself up to his full height, smiling confidently at Princess Celestia from in front of his easel. A poster board covered in bar graphs settled upon it. Celestia sat quietly for a moment, keeping her expression carefully schooled. She considered briefly, sending his petition to Luna instead. With a small sigh, she discarded the idea. She didn't need Luna thinking everything had gone to pot in her absence, nor did she want to pay the stallion's therapy bills after Luna was done with him. Tilting her head, she gave off the impression of deep thought, Rose's eyes slightly unfocused, as the stallion waited patiently for her answer. I see, Stuffed Shirt. Do you mind telling me why we should stop a program proven to help nurture a foal's ability and willingness to learn in favor of some pretty paint in old houses? She smiled down at him gently, keeping the pulse of anger buried deep within her breast. Snorting, he began to roll his eyes before catching himself and clearing his throat. As I said, it would bring more tourist revenue for Canterlot. Canterlot is the richest city in Equestria, with a record of high surplus of bits. Her assistant hoofed the relevant documents to the stallion, who gave them only a cursory glance. I don't see a reason why we should cut this educational funding. Because the surplus won't last forever. What if Canterlot falls on hard times? Or a natural disaster hits, like the hurricane off of Hawaii some years back? That was actually a fair point, and Celestia began considering it, before his next sentence stopped her cold. Besides, Your Highness, it's not as though ponies need to be educated to take out our trash or sweep our streets. The anger flared again, and in her head, Celestia fantasized briefly about immolating him on the spot. A small ruffling of her wings was the only outward sign of anything being amiss with the princess, and she forced the bile back down again with a small swallow. You are suggesting that the ponies in the public schools are kept ignorant? I'm glad you asked. He pulled up another poster in his pale blue aura, settling it on the easel. As you can see by these figures, test scores are going down year by year. Granted, they are still higher than most cities, but the foals are not performing to standards. They don't appear to care about their education. I don't see a reason why to keep funneling money to poor schools and districts when they don't appreciate it. I see. Celestia appeared at the graphs, making a large show of examining them carefully. And tell me, how much of this is the fault of lazy foals versus a large influx of foals from our recent population boom? We haven't sent money to the schools for hiring more staff in quite some time. I can imagine that the school teachers are getting overwhelmed. Stuffed Shirt shuffled nervously, as she turned her gaze to him instead. In those facts and figures there, do you have the average class size? He pulled one document out of his sheath, eyeing it distastefully. It would appear that the average class size is 42. Celestia blinked, something finally managing to surprise her. Truly? Yes, but back to my proposal. He was cut off as Celestia raised a wing. I know precisely what to do with it. Stifling the urge to request that the proposal be sent to her personal lavatory, she turned to her assistant. Quill Feather? The Pegasus came to her side once more, pulling out a quill and parchment from under her wings. I'm ordering the extra money to account for the population boom to be sent to school districts of Canterlot, districts 1 through 7. I want you to find out how many teachers they need to get the class average down to 20 students maximum, and then send them enough to hire the teachers. This does include teachers for gymnastics, art, music, and the sciences. Quill Feather scribbled down the note cheerfully, Celestia smiling beatifically at the now stammering unicorn. He stared back, mouth slightly agape. Princess, even with conservative estimates, that's hundreds of thousands of bits per year. I am aware of my country's finances, Stuffed Shirt. She eyed him coolly, one eyebrow raised as a small smile appeared. In fact, I must thank you for bringing this to my attention. Why, with your selfless act of bringing this to me today, I am certain that the schools would love to give you recognition for all your help." Stuffed Shirt paused, seeming to think about it, while Celestia's gut churned. Gods, how I hate diplomacy in this age. There was a time, many hundreds of years ago, that one of the sisters merely saying something and stamping a hoof was enough to make it so. If a few ponies were upset by that, well, they had dungeons. Nowadays, it's all lawsuit this and jail time that. She sighed, shaking the errant thoughts of days gone by from her head. She forced a kind smile down at Stuffed Shirt at his nod. "I'm so glad we can come to an agreement. Thank you for bringing your proposal to court today, even if the outcome wasn't quite what you were expecting." The stallion bowed hastily, before gathering up his now moot facts and figures. "Thank you, Your Highness." As he made his way back to the throne room doors, Celestia bowed her head beside her assistants to speak privately. "Quillfeather? My use of the word 'you' in my proclamation was literal. I am entrusting this to you." The Pegasus balked, golden eyes widening as she nearly lost her grip on the papers. Your Highness, I don't mean to contradict, but we have a Minister of Education for that." "A Minister of Education that's clearly not doing his job. If he were, this wouldn't be happening." The temperature in the immediate area rose by several degrees, yet Quill shivered at the look in her sovereign eyes. "You've served me loyally in all things during your time here, and I have nothing but the utmost faith in your ability to carry out my decree." Celestia smiled warmly, allowing one wing to brush fondly over her assistant's back. Quillfeather smiled, bolstered by her princess's faith, and fluttered her mottled feathers excitedly. "I won't let you down, Your Highness." Celestia looked into the Pegasus' eager face, full of hope and determination, and it took all of her considerable might not crack and sag beneath it. She smiled instead, never showing that it was only the gritting of her teeth that kept her from screaming. Purple hooves clacked eagerly across the smooth stone floor of the castle. Golden shoes shining by the lights hung in alcoves along the walls. As she approached her mentor's quarters, she slowed, not wanting to appear too eager. Twilight Sparkle smiled, using her magenta magic to smooth down some stray hairs of her mane and tail. She breathed deeply before standing straighter, bringing one elaborately shod hoof up to knock gently on Celestia's door. "Come in." Celestia's voice, normally as warm as the sun and twice as bright, was dull and nearly listless through the heavy wooden door. Twilight hesitated for a second before slipping into the room quietly. Celestia laid upon a large golden pillow, snuggled down to its soft material. An exquisite tea set, painted with roses and vines, sat on a small table beside her. Small squares of colorful paper littered the table. One side colored, while the other was matte white. Celestia raised her head from her contemplation of the merry fire in the hearth, and smiled warmly at the newest princess of Equestria. "Twilight Sparkle, you know you do not need to knock." Hooves shuffling awkwardly, Twilight blushed. "I know, but it only seemed polite. But you wanted to see me, Princess?" Celestia motioned to the table with the foreleg. Twilight approached, settling down on the cushion across from her. She felt a little thrill of nostalgia. How many times, as a filly, has she settled onto this exact cushion with this exact tea set in front of her? She lifted her teacup to her lips, savoring the delicate aroma coming up in small curls of steam for a moment before sipping. Celestia mirrored her actions, the two content to merely drink and be in each other's presence for a time. After a few moments of silent bliss, Celestia turned to Twilight. The purple alicorn could see the bags under her mentor's eyes, and the strain of ruling was for the first time fully evident on Celestia's face. "Twilight, do you enjoy origami?" Lifting a blue square in her magenta aura, Twilight nodded happily. "Yes! I've read a lot of books on it, but haven't had too much of a chance to try it myself." Celestia chuckled. Drawing a green square to herself, she moved the tea set gently to the stone floor, clearing the table for the two to work. "It has been a favorite pastime of mine over my years of rule. I find it to be very calming." Her golden magic folded her square expertly, leaving her with the paper swan in a matter of moments. Smiling, she animated it with her magic, flying it over the table to boop Twilight on the nose. Twilight giggled, beginning to fold her own paper carefully the way she'd seen her mentor do. Celestia smiled. "Now, while you got something to occupy your mind, tell me what's bothering you." Jerking her head up, Twilight blushed. "I'm fine, Princess. Really." Another corner of the paper folded down carefully. "It's just that ruling is a little stressful, but it's nothing I can't handle." A piece to the side came up, folding a wing. "Is that why you rushed to my study so quickly that you sounded more like a herd of antelope than one pony?" Arching her brow, Celestia took a deliberate sip of her tea, eyeing at a stammering Twilight over the rim. "Well, it was just..." The smaller alicorn sighed, shoulders drooping. "It's just hard. All this new magic, and I'm so much stronger than before. I helped Luna with the beginning of Night Court, just to get my hooves wet, and there was this awful petitioner." She trailed off, blinking back tears as she stared at her paper. She didn't care that her blacksmith shop was polluting the local river. We had to force all these restrictions on her, and we have to send some pony to check up on her periodically now to make sure that she's doing what she's supposed to do." Celestia nodded. "These things will happen, Twilight." "I know. She made me so mad. I lifted her paperwork with my magic and it imploded. Literally imploded. I didn't mean to do that." She lifted her paper again, frustrated, and the tiny folded swan tore in half. Twilight stared at it, letting it drop to the table as tears welled up in her eyes. The two sat together for a time, Celestia watching Twilight with sad eyes as she cried out of her frustrations. Twilight pulled her wings around herself, cuddling in close to them for comfort. After a while, the sobs turned into sniffles, and Twilight wiped her face quickly with a foreleg. Mumbling an apology, she drank deeply of her tea, letting the jasmine smell calm her. "We are like tigers, Twilight." Celestia settled back, taking a sip of her own tea again as her student's red-rimmed eyes met her own. "Incredibly strong, fierce, and protective of our own kin. For us, our kin includes all our little ponies here in Equestria." Uncomprehending violet eyes met calm rose ones, Twilight searching her mentors for clarification. "Why? What?" With a chuckle, Celestia pulled another paper to herself in her golden magic. "What I mean is that we are strong and very dangerous force. The smallest slip in a time of stress, and entire cities will be wiped clean off the map." She calmly folded her paper, studiously ignoring Twilight's gaping mouth. Have you..." A warning glance from Celestia stopped her cold, her mentor's steely gaze boring into her. "Have I what, Twilight?" Celestia's voice was calm, even loving, entirely with the odds of the cold, flinty look in her eyes. "Have I killed populations, reduced landscapes to ash and glass, and burned away countless frail mortal bodies?" Twilight sat quietly, mouth working soundlessly as she blinked at her mentor. The warm, loving light she associated with Celestia had been changed. It was now that she could see the harsh, blinding side of the sun. That, mixed with Celestia's obvious fatigue, struck Twilight speechless for once, as she floundered in her own mind to come to the grips with everything. Abruptly, the older alicorn turned back to the papers on the table, expression smoothing over expertly as she lifted an orange one. "What can you tell me about paper tigers?" Twilight clicked back into her role of a student, with a practiced ease, mind clearing at the direct question. It comes from a Chinese phrase meaning something that is threatening as a tiger, but is ultimately harmless. She watched with some awe as Celestia spun her paper in her magic, mountain and valley folds both executed with ease. It's often used in literature or politics as a descriptor for some ponies such as... She paused, tilting her head. Such as... The paper was taking shape, a larger rounded section stemming from a thinner one. Such as a king or queen or other ruler. Twilight met her mentor's eyes, confusion and reluctant comprehension wearing on her face. Very good, Twilight. Celestia gently folded down the tiger's head, the smooth, blank face staring out across the table. But, Princess, we're not ultimately harmless, are we? I don't understand. Twilight gently prodded the tiger with her magic, drawing back as Celestia levitated a bit of charcoal over. Drawing deliberate, harsh stripes down the tiger's side, Celestia shook her head. We are not. We must humble ourselves, change from tigers of flesh and blood to those of paper. Did you not wonder why you and your friends were sent to save the Crystal Empire? It was a test for me? Celestia inclined her head slightly. It was, but Twilight, when the gods fight, only mortals lose. The truth is simply that yes, Luna and I couldn't easily dispose of Sombra. He was laughably weak after being imprisoned for so long. Would have made very short work of him. The problem is, we would have to also make very short work of half the population of the Crystal Empire. The tiger stood proudly on the table between them, coal-smudged eyes glaring fiercely at Twilight. The purple alicorn met its gaze, rings ruffling slightly as she shifted. The silence settled in, broken only by sips of tea from Celestia and the soft shifting from Twilight. Something doesn't make sense. Twilight poked the tiger with her magic, turning its gaze over to Celestia. If it were so dangerous, then why do we need royal guards? I know about using them as a police force, that's fine. But why do they guard each and every door and hall in this palace? Celestia beamed, eyes sliding shut as she nodded. An excellent question. In return, I posit one to you. Let's say there was some group of ponies that don't like the monarchy, and let's say that in order to make a point, to score a blow against the royal sisters, they decide to assassinate the princess's most faithful student. Nudging the tiger to look at Twilight again, Celestia opened her eyes. What do you suppose an alicorn mad with grief might do? Shoulders slumped. Twilight looked down at the table, mind working. I guess you'd forgo a trial. The accused would never even make it to trial. That's why we have royal guards. They protect the most foolhardy of our little ponies from us. Celestia rose, stretching out her legs and wings before looking back down at the newest princess. You must always be mindful of your emotions, Twilight. You must always be in control. And most of all, you must never forget that a tiger is only truly dangerous when she is not caged. Celestia folded her wings back down, and feeling her student needed some time alone. Trotting softly out the door, it thudded shut behind her, and Twilight barely moved, simply watching the little tiger with haunted eyes. A few moments later, the door opened and closed again, leaving no pony behind but the ashy remnants of an origami project. The end. Hello guys, Snogwritts here. Congratulations for making it to the end of this video. As always, I definitely enjoyed reading this fic to all of you. Alrighty then, let's start reviewing this fic. Okay, so here's this. Now this story is based off of the prime ruler herself, Celestia. This author has a unique way of writing this story, specifically with the ruler's perspective against moral ponies. This is relevant in the proposal scene with Stuffed Shirt, and his accusations on spending bits the right ways. this critical incident that showed Celestia's ex towards these ponies, and it's also clearly seen in Twilight's conversation. This definitely shows on the story, and it definitely makes it clear to the reader what's going on. The ending was well thought, and it definitely ended well and wrapped the story up, if it didn't have any plot holes, that is. The story felt like it was missing something vital to plot itself. Now do remember that plot is the sequence of events of a story, and for this case, for this author, he needed to fill that middle part. Yes, indeed, the beginning and end was good, but the middle felt weak, and another event could have been placed to actually help accelerate the story more. The reader can know about its characters more, since it felt like a short story, and it can come with a great ending if it has a good middle. Something I suggest the author should do is to probably do an event in the middle of the stuffed shirt incident and the Twilight's conversation. Specifically, you can definitely add another, maybe Celestia feels another conflict coming, or maybe she has a thought about something, or maybe she experiences something outside or somewhere around her palace somewhere. Do something about the middle. Adding more to the middle will definitely help the tone rise up, which was disappointing as well. According to the official source, this is a sadfic, but strongly it isn't. The story just felt more of the drama genre than the sad genre. This also recently happened with another fic we read, I Spoke to Mrs. Smartypants Today, where comedy was more implemented than darkness. Tone is there in this fic, but it only occurs during Twilight's conversation, and nobly enough, this tone really usually comes from Twilight, not from Celestia herself, which is a problem since the main character is supposed to give the most tone so the reader can actually care about him, but the reader actually caring about the side character instead of the main character of this fic can definitely trigger a problem here. My suggestion to the author is to actually work on writing sad fics so he can present a good atmosphere to the reader so they can make him, well, cry. Because, as a writer myself, I would definitely want to try to make the reader cry when I'm writing a sad fic. The author just needs to work on writing sad fics. And I definitely believe he can, just with practice. Always practice when you're writing. That can definitely help you improve. Overall, this author's writing has potential, but it can definitely be greatly improved. Alright, let's wrap this video up. So, before you write something, remember to focus on your genre. Now, if you're having trouble finding a genre, ask these questions to yourself. Is there something I can describe about this genre? Can I describe it in detail and convert it to figurative speech? Can I actually pass it through the characters? Can I pass it through the atmosphere? Ask these questions to yourself, and if you say yes to all of them, that is your perfect genre, and I'm sure you'll write a great story with it. Alrighty then, as always, thank you for listening, fellow viewer, and if you liked the video, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I upload weekly fanfic reads every Saturday on a variety of genres and give an analysis after each one. Alright, that's it from me. This is Snogwritts, signing out.